Hello, Echo Units. My name is Rox Titan, and today we're going to be going through the match between Flare and Milk that happened during VRML Season 1, Week 4. So let's get into the first clip. We got kind of the beginning of the match. We got this Milk, actually. They're labeled wrong on the overlay. Milk moving down the field. And you can see their players are actually just getting a chance to just kind of walk straight into it. And something that you need to pay attention to in this clip is the way that Milk delegates their players and gives them they all have their job and they all do that really well. So you can see Flare, God, this overlay is going to confuse me. Flare has one player back and they've got one player free floating off to the disc carrier. The other two players who should be getting a chain if they wanted to stop this are getting held up by two of Milk's players. And so Milk puts themselves in a really good spot here. They've got one player here to support this player just in case the stack gets free. This player still has an out in C. Jason. But because the other two players are able to keep Flare held up so well, then he doesn't even need to use this player. And so Milk does a really good job of keeping two of their players back to hold up the chain. But they're not overcommitting it. Because if they had all three players, if C. Jason were to be back there also helping stun, then if the stack were to get loose and free, then JL wouldn't have any options except for to either try to take a really quick shot before the stack gets to it or trying to pass it back through the stack, which are both not great options. So the way that they have two of their players back holding up the stack, they got this one defender who's not able to catch the disc carrier in time, and they've still got one other option in case something goes badly back on the stunning side of things, is a really good offensive push by Milk. And in this situation, as Flare, there's actually, there's not a whole lot you can do. This player here could have gone back to try and help break up the stack. But honestly, that might have been the smarter move, but just being held up here really killed them. They needed to just win some brawls here and get going. Because this is not, even if they could just get one player a decent speed out past, if they got one player out at 7 or 8, he could catch up with this player and they could get a boost and they could stop this. But because Milk does such a good job of holding them back, that there's nothing really the Flare could do in the situation. Let's go right into clip 2. You see Milk controlling the disc on Flare's side of the field. The overlay's fixed now. And a pass gets intercepted by Chrome. A really good read by Chrome to get the disc on the other team's side. And they do end up scoring off of it. And you can see that what started off at this play with Milk receiving the disc and then controlling it really well. They're passing it back. They're playing it slowly. But once they started pressuring towards the bubble, they got a little bit too excited. You can see he passes it instead of going to B-Love and then to CJ, which would have been a shorter pass and a safer pass, obviously, in this situation. He goes for the longer one, which would have been a little bit quicker, but is a lot more dangerous. It's never worth the risk. So controlling the disc on your opponent's side of the field is very good, and making these cross passes important. But the shorter passes you're making, there's a sweet spot in passing where if you're right next to somebody, passing the disc isn't going to alleviate any pressure. You're just if you're handing the disc to somebody, you're not actually helping anything. But if you're also making passes from one wall to the opposite wall, then you're leaving yourself a lot of opportunity for somebody to make an easier read on the pass and to intercept you, like what happened here. So just taking a little bit more time on Milk's side and passing the disc, just taking shorter passes, a little bit safer, and be able to advance the play up. They had this 1v1 stun where it looks like Game got stunned out, and they had a good 3v3 going because they're doing 3v3 on bubble offense, which, especially if you remember ESL seasons, 3v3 bubble offense favors the attacker very heavily as long as you can play it slowly and keep control of the disc, which is what Milk should have done here. Clip 3, we have Milk coming up. We have B-Love chilling on Nest, gets a nice fake out, and then passes to C. Jason, who then floats up and eventually gets punched out, and that's a clear for Flare. So there's a couple things that went wrong here. This juke by B-Love was actually pretty good because he had one option on the shoulder, but you can see the Game didn't really go for the punch on him. He went more for the interception on the pass, which is why he's putting his arms out. And this is actually a pretty good read by B-Love, reading that the players weren't actually committing to him specifically, and they were more trying to predict and read the pass. That was a good read by B-Love. And then you can see the pass to C. Jason was a little bit high. So C. Jason does have to unanchor himself to catch the pass, which is not a great thing, but it's not the end of the world. Because you can see he still got Callan back, or not, that's Callan, yeah. Callan back on double diamonds, where he could, especially since he's up top, he has a pretty easy clear back to Callan if he wants to reset this position, which at this point, since the pass was a little bit too high and he did have to unanchor himself, resetting here is totally okay and is probably one of the better moves. Now, he also does have C. Jason here. You can see this defender's on B-Love, so he's not part of the play. He's got a defender on the backboard. There's a defender on top of the goal, both facing him. And you can see the goalie here is also turning around to face the attacker. They're all expecting the shot, but this is really not a good shot angle. And so here, if JL had delayed his launch off of the post by like half a second, or even he didn't even need to delay it. This pass to JL could still happen. It's a little bit riskier than if he had delayed, but this is still, since nobody's paying attention, this is still a super easy pass and slam in. Nobody's going to be able to react to that. And so instead of holding onto the disc, and I guess he's looking for an anchor, he doesn't know he's been grabbed yet, just making a quick pass and realizing that you're in danger before you've been grabbed. As soon as he had to unanchor here to grab this pass, because the pass was a little bit high, he jumped out into it. As soon as he had to unanchor to grab the pass, he should recognize that he's in a bad position and he needs to get rid of the disc quickly. And he's got the options for it. He's got JL down here again open, and he's got the reset back to Callan if JL was covered, or if he felt their pass was too risky. And both of those are totally good options. It's just recognizing that you're in danger as early as possible. And as soon as he had to unanchor from the backboard to catch the disc, that's when he should have realized that he was in a bad position and that he needed to get rid of the disc. We have clip 4. We have Milk clearing the disc down. We have a quick catch by GS. He takes a quick shot, misses. JL also misses the shot. And now, at first glance, it looks like a couple of botched shots. And they definitely are botched shots. If either one of these has gone in, this wouldn't be a problem. But the main problem with this play for Milk, actually, is more on the other two players. Ironically, as that is. Because there's no pressure here. CJ catches the disc. Nobody's chaining. None of Flair's players are even past the midfield mark. And so at that situation, you can see here, if we go back a little bit, that they're not really together yet either. As soon as this pass goes, the other two Milk players need to let them know. Because, again, look, he's about to intercept. He's maybe half a second away from catching this, not even less than that. And none of Flair's players are together yet. So at that point, if you're one of the two players who's back, you need to let your teammates know that they have time and they could take their time on this. Because you can see C. Jason grabs the block, and basically just takes a whip shot. He could have easily floated up a little bit closer to the edge of the bubble, and especially since JL took so much time, he got a rebound off of it. They could have taken a lot of time here and gotten that three-pointer easily, which would have helped out the outcome of this game actually a lot. And so when you get a breakaway like this in a situation, when your team gets a breakaway, it's up to these players to obviously make their shots, but it's also up to the players back to let them know how much time they have. Because something like this would be a lot more, it wouldn't even be really a mistake if they had a lot of pressure on and he needed to throw it quickly, and he was under pressure and he dinged it. That's something that is, I mean, it's still a mistake, but it's not something worth talking about as much as something like this is, where the players just aren't communicating and not letting each other know how much time they have. Because you can see both players could have taken a lot longer of time and taken their time making these shots. Like, not even just the first shot, but the second one. You can see C. Jason is on nest. Gail Graham could have passed back to C. Jason, and they still would have had time to make that shot. So they had a lot of time. They just needed their teammates to let them know that they had a lot of time. We have another play by Milk. We have C. Jason moving it out off the joust. They're controlling the disc pretty well. They're passing to open players, waiting for that. And we see Bila find himself in this position where he doesn't really have any open passes. He's got a player on nest, so he can't go for the long shot. You can see he went for the wind-up, but then realizes the player's there and looks otherwheres. And he's got this chain coming here. So he's looking around, and you can see he's got one player between these two blocks, which is a really tight angle, and it's not something a lot of players are comfortable with making, and for good reason. He's got two players up here that are both out of his line of sight, so he doesn't have any passing options here. And yes, it looks like these two players are trying to get together for a chain. And at that point, but he still doesn't have any option. This player, again, back here is behind this block. He's not an option. He should be more opener. He should be more open for this. He should either be on this block or should have either stayed back or moved forward in front of it to try to make yourself open. Because if you... Now, obviously, the best play here, if with this situation, is either to be open or these two players could have communicated that they were making a boost. But there's no guarantee that that boost was happening, especially since they had this player on who looks like he's leeching. I can't quite tell. And so this boost might not even get free. So even if you were to clear it in the top trench, for example, that might not be... it might not work out because this chain might not get out because of this leech here. And so one of the especially in a situation like this where they're controlling the disc pretty well at the beginning of the clip, just making sure that the player with the disc always has at least one, preferably a lot more than one, passing lanes open, and just being open. Like if this chain had started a little bit lower, it would have been an option for him to pass out. If this player on the other side was either further back, staying like near the entrance to the tunnel, or if had gone through a little bit faster and been on the other side, or been down here even, would have been a really good place to be. Making sure that you're always open as much as you can. And Belov tries his best. He tries to get it up. He sees his team making the boost. He throws it up. Ultimately does hit the block, and it ends up being bad for them. But just, he didn't really have a lot of options there, so he kind of got screwed into that. Go to the next clip. You can see Flair then making an offensive push. They're moving the disc pretty well in the opponent's zone. A little bit risky pass there, but it worked out. Chrome goes up to game on the roof and pushes in, then passes back to Chrome and puts it in. And this is something that I've talked about before, but again, just the strength that you get from this one extra pass. You can see these players are both focusing completely. The goalie is totally focused on this shot. And you can see he moves up and even thinks it's a shot. Because when you're passing it to the player who's right next to the goal, you're basically artificially extending the size of the goal to include that player's reach. Because when you're this close, this player, again, has no problem just slamming this in. And there's nothing that Callan can do to react to that. And so just always looking for this one extra pass, even if it feels like it's redundant because they're right next to the goal anyway, you're still passing to... If you think about it as this player being an extension of the goal, you're passing it to the part of the goal that the goalie isn't even aware of and isn't covering. And so it's a lot safer to get that two-pointer there when you just give it that one extra pass to that player who's right next to the goal. And obviously you have to make sure that that player is open and they're not getting stunned out. They don't have somebody on them. But more often than that, they will be open and they will be able to get in like that. So it's definitely something that all teams should be looking for. We go for the last clip. And you can see the disc gets cleared down and gets collected by Flair here. Flair has all four players back. They're going to control the disc on their own side. And you can see Milk is down by about 5 points here. They only got about 2 minutes left, so they need to make something happen here. And what they've done is almost pretty much exactly how they should be playing the situation, except for one thing. So they've got the disc is in Flair's side. Flair doesn't have anybody together for a boost, so they're not threatening an immediate, they're not threatening a rush here, basically. But Milk has one player left kind of behind who's not part of this aggressive push. So these three players on Milk are playing a really aggressive defense where they're pushing, they're stunning this guy out. They've got this player who looks like he's about to, who boosted with this other player. He's about to move up and cover him. They've got the back passes covered. This player's covering, pressuring the disc. But because they've got just this one extra player who's trying to cover, I think, the clear, Flair is able to take the 4v3 and break the pressure and then get the clear off. And they eventually end up getting the clear. They get the chain before Milk does. Even though they get leashed, they get into an offensive position, and then Milk's defense plan basically foiled. So when you're, I think there's neither players would do anything wrong per se. Like there's nothing wrong with playing a player back and then having an offensive chain pressure the disc and chase it around. But because Milk is doing a play where they're spreading out and trying to cover everybody on Flair's side while they have the disc on their side to try and pressure a turnover, this player needs to be up as part of that pressure. And so the team, there's nothing, again, there's nothing wrong with having somebody play back and bait the clear, and having two players chain up and chase the disc and try and get a panic clear to go off. But no matter what they decide to do, the players on the team need to be on the same page here. And so instead of having one player looking for the baited clear and the other three players trying to pressure man coverage, because it's 4v3 man coverage, the player is able to easily find a hole almost immediately in the defense and is able to get a clear past the bait. Because something like what this player is doing here and baiting the clear will only really work out if the person who's making the clear doesn't have the time to look for it. If they're getting pressured heavily by a stack and they have to make a really quick clear just through a tunnel through the middle, then if you've guessed correctly where they're going to throw the disc, then you can get to it a lot quicker and you can get the interception from the baited clear. But because Milk has kind of got their plans split here, they don't get the opportunity to make either of these defensive strategies work out. I think this game ended up going to Flair in the series 2-0. But it was a good game. As a final remark, I'm going to start going back, I think, and reviewing teams. So I'm not going to be doing the thing where I don't analyze any games with teams in it that I've already done before, because it's getting to the point where I've done, I think, 8 teams at this point. So it's getting kind of crowded on which games I can do. So leave your suggestions on Twitter for me. I'm going to send out a tweet probably as soon as the next week's matches are out. And just reply to that tweet. It makes it a lot easier for me to organize the suggestions for which matches I should cover, because they're all in one place and people can respond and like the matches that they think. But that'll be it. So have a nice day.